that a viewer has when they're using more than one device while consuming primary content, either on a primary screen being the TV or on a connected device, and how all the devices interplay together. When we look at the types of interactions people have with consumers, you can classify them in lean back, lean forward, what we're going to call curl up, and then all of them sort of come together now in the interaction that we're defining as the second screen. So if we look closer, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, early days of the television, when it was a formal appliance in the house, and when there was probably only one TV in the house, we had a real community around the experience of watching it. And for many, that was relaxing. There was only so much selection for types of content. The family would get together, relax, and share in the moment of enjoying this high production value content. We also had this paradigm of leaning forward, where most people would be sitting at a desk doing productivity exercises, sort of the modernization of the process of writing and the typewriter and the laptop or the desktop computer. And then there started to be much more of an entertainment bent around computers. And we started to see the entertainment that people would consume on computers start to migrate to tablet devices, connected devices, phones, and it became a melding of the kind of experience you would have when you're leaning back on the couch, watching something that was produced, along with the ability to control in much more depth than you would have with a remote control on the couch. And because of that, we've started to try and recognize that there's an opportunity to capture that sort of intimacy that an end user has with the device when they're sitting on a couch consuming internet-driven experiences, and pair that with super high production value content that's distributed through the television. There's some perspectives that'll say that the multiple devices that are present in a living room could be a form of distraction, and later in the presentation we'll get into some statistics around how people use those devices and what percentage of people are using them while watching TV. But to us, there's the power and the synergy in understanding why people would be turning on the TV to begin with, to be consuming that well-produced content, to be changing schedules in their day in order to do it, or to be coming home and dedicating time to watching a show or something. And so we want to capture the ability to enrich that experience. So here we can see the evolution as a whole of lean back, converging into the second screen platform that we've sort of discussed. Again, here we've got a communal experience in the 50s when there was one TV and linear content with a limited selection of channels where family would get together at the appropriate time and enjoy that moment together. As there became more channels and more diversity in the types of content, the experience of watching TV became more individual. You'd have sports programming, you'd have comedy shows, you'd have drama shows, you name it, and every audience member would start to determine what was the most meaningful experience for him or herself. When internet entered into the home and with the living room, we also started to get DVRs, TiVos, other types of technology that allowed the audience to control the experience in much more depth. At the same time, consumer electronic devices became so much more accessible and inexpensive that these all became parts of the fabric of somebody's digital experience at home. So at this point, in the 90s and 2000s, pretty much everybody would have one computer or more, probably more than one TV, and certainly some sort of other auxiliary devices in their life. Today, everybody pretty much has a smartphone. Most people have a tablet somewhere in their family and multiple TVs, and the ability to control consumption of content, looking at DVR content whenever. And so we start to see statistics that we'll touch in a minute about what percentage of people are watching TV with their tablets and smartphones, and it's really most people. So again, now let's try and capture those experiences people are having on their individual devices and relate them to the broader experience of the immersive, lean-back entertainment experience in the home. We can also take a look at it from the perspective of technology that's been present in the living room over time. If we start in the 50s, it's 1 TV per household, small TV, limited channels. As we get into the 70s and 80s, we have larger format television screens, which allow for more beautiful content to be displayed. And we also have, for the first time, more than one piece of equipment that happens to be attached to the TV experience in the living room. That's in the form of entertainment consoles, which become much more important going into 2000s and today. In the 80s and 90s, you also have the advent of the remote control. So now there's much more, or there's much lower switching costs, let's say, to switching programming from one station to another. It's much easier to sit in front of the TV and not know what you're watching and sort of start to discover on your own by browsing through channels, rather than getting out, flipping the switch on a TV, seeing what happens, sitting down when something looks good, then getting up to switch again and starting a very, very arduous discovery process. We also have the ability to record content with the VCR, and we have many, many choices that are provided by cable or satellite. In 2000s, we have a convergence to digital technologies. We're getting away from analog cable, we're getting away from analog recording, and we're seeing more robust entertainment consoles. And then in the early half of the 2000s, there's the ability to control and manipulate when you consume the content with TiVo. You also have very, very inexpensive consumer electronic devices. And so pretty much everything else in the home that's entertainment related is moving away from analog, with the exception of books. But then sort of the advent of Kindle started midway into the 2000s, where it became so inexpensive and proliferated so much that really most people are going to Kindle for books anyway today. Now we're looking at Xbox 360, where you can have Netflix or any number of other experiences built into your gaming console. The gaming console is not just for gaming. You've got an iPad that can deliver similar experiences in a different form factor. And you've got every major tech player, Apple, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, starting to think about how they're going to own the living room. So moving forward later in the series, we're going to take a look at all the big plays that those big tech companies have made, understand how that affects the way a user would interact with consuming content, recognize the different type of devices that each person would have in their ecosystem, and try and capture the most meaningful interactions or series of interactions for each of those users over the course of the different types of entertainment experiences they'd like to have. And again, here we're going recapping of a couple of the major players we think are going to be very pertinent moving forward for our second screen. We can also begin to think about entertainment experiences that exist beyond the living room. In the 90s, really not so far ago, on the left, we'll see a picture of the way a concert used to look. People would show up and dance. Today, everybody's got a screen out capturing a moment that's really important, either for themselves to look at later or to post over social networks or to share that moment with somebody else who they think will value it. And another common parody of images that sometimes we see features the last Pope's inauguration and then the most recent Pope's inauguration. And on the left, you see an image much like this one where nobody's got a camera. And on the right, everybody has a camera. So it's about understanding live content when it's happening and how to capture it and leverage the other devices that exist in the entertainment ecosystem while it's all happening. Moving forward, we can start to see how to connect digital experiences beyond just phones and cameras that are present at these events to the systems that power them. So you've got ordering fulfillment systems like Micros that you can integrate with a phone, so you can order concessions while you're in a stand at a sporting event. You can also start to understand why members of the audience are interested in content and pair them with people they know or don't know in order to have much deeper interactions and engagements around it. Here's some great stats on second screen. We really see that most people are using more than one screen. And in the earlier days of this happening, really with the first and second generations of smartphones, a lot of that second screen activity was productivity. So emails, text messages, catching up between produced content and commercials. And now we're starting to see much more meaningful experiences come out of those devices, whether it's additional content, whether it's deeper engagement. it doesn't so much matter, but we want to make sure that those who are interested in produced content are deriving the most from the experience of watching it. So the marketers, the producers of all this content have gone through leaps and bounds in order to attract the right audience and get their attention and sit them down. And they're hungry for more, so we'll find ways to engage more deeply. We can also start to segment the audience by looking at what devices they're using. We see that younger users tend to use the cell phone, maybe because it's less expensive, maybe because it's more convenient, maybe because they're more familiar with the user interfaces to accomplish the tasks they want to accomplish. But for larger form factor devices, we see that audience skewing older. And here we're featuring middle-aged and more senior people, but we also see very senior people using tablets. They're very, very low barriers to entry, and that market segment, as you have an aging population, becomes more and more interesting for us to look at. It's also really important to consider social. Here we've got a graph of the growth and decline of Facebook versus MySpace over time. But really, for a second screen, the social network that we find most interesting is Twitter, because Twitter is designed around real-time interactions, measuring trends as they're happening. And when consumers are really engaged with the content they're watching, they want to share it, they want to converse, they want to be a part of the conversation. Some of the very basic feature modules in today's second screen platforms lean heavily on Twitter. We'll also see Twitter become very helpful in facilitating fantasy sports leagues and little communities that are built off of the content that the second screen platform is supporting. Here's one example of a content-specific second screen experience. This is for The Walking Dead, and users can follow along with each episode and predict how many zombie kills there are going to be, and then basically wager without spending money on how the zombies are going to die. Is it going to be a crossbow? Is it going to be a bullet? Is it going to be a Molotov cocktail? And you can reward the users for having the most accurate prediction about the zombie kills. But there are also much less violent examples in the form of American Idol and NFL Sunday Ticket on DirecTV. Right now, these are very packaged solutions. We're going to start to see the experiences for specific types of programming evolve in more depth and with wider feature sets moving forward. We're also seeing the obvious come to fruition, which is control via a device. So getting rid of that remote, having a more intuitive way to interact with controlling your primary screen from the secondary screen. But this isn't just going to be buttons. This is going to be discovery mechanisms. It's going to be taking content from watching it on your iPad in the kitchen, walking into the living room, putting your finger on the tablet, and literally clicking it as though to pick up a piece of paper and send it to the TV to send the content you're watching from the tablet to the TV. And that's actually present now. But in the future, we're going to have much less friction when we start to look at how content and experiences not just mirror themselves, seeing exactly frame for frame the same thing on a tablet as you do on a TV, but understanding that there's a reason why a user has more than one device with them, and optimizing the experience for each type of device while recognizing how many other types of devices there are in an ecosystem. That's it for today. I hope we breezed through it really quickly and appreciate everyone's interest, this being the dry run. At this point, would love to open up the floor for discussion questions. And also, we're going to be recording this and all the future ones so you can go back, rewatch, and enjoy all of the content we've prepared for you. So thanks. Okay, we've got a question about live content affecting second screen experiences. This is a really good question. I think there are a few ways to take a look at it. And to do it, you have to define what live content is. So